In this week's video, it's time to show you around the shop, so let's get to the shop tour. So the first place that we can start is over on this wall by the door. When you first come in, we have my drill press right here with a custom table that I've made. I've got myself a dust collection hose. This here is my fence, which can be set in place, and then these are actually just stop blocks. Let me show you this cabinet here. There's no drawer slides in this one. It's all friction fit. And really not a lot of organization in here. I've got some of my drill bits and hole saws and that kind of thing in this drawer. Some radius type things over here, as well as some flocking equipment and some gloves. This one here is an assortment of things. I've got a hollow chisel mortiser attachment that I picked up. It's a cheapy thing. Don't know what I think about it yet, but that's for the drill press. And then a lot of my camera equipment, my belt sander that I never use, and some of my tool belts are in this. Next to the drill press, I come on over here to miter station. This is one of the first projects that I actually ever built for the old wood shop, a flip out miter station. I believe I got the plans from Fix This Build That, so I'll link that down in the description in case you're hoping to build the same thing. This miter saw here has been a big upgrade. I got this while I was still in the other shop. Really like this Makita, and then it's just hooked in through a rigid shop vac, which is also what I use and manually switch over for the drill press. On this wing here, I tend to hang some of my dust masks, and I keep some hearing protection on the side. As well, I do have some T-Track just surface mounted because I do plan on replacing this miter station at some point, and there will be a video on that whenever I decide to do that. So I've got surface mounted T-Track and a cheap stop block that I think I got off Temu or something like that at some point, and then had to modify to actually fit securely in the T-Track. I really like this IVAC switch box that I have connected to my miter saw. It really helps make it easy to remember to use the shop vac to collect whatever dust this thing's actually going to collect every time that I use it, instead of only when I remember. Best $70 I think that you can spend for dust collection. If we go up high for a second here, what you'll see is I've got some offcuts of some wood. This Bora rack seems to work pretty good. I've got some poplar and a little bit of red oak offcuts. A lot of this I just got from a friend who owns a cabinet shop, and he doesn't need pieces this size, so he passed them on kindly to me. From the miter saw, we come on over to the French cleat wall. This box here is my Jessam doweling jig, and then I use the laser cutter to cut myself out some French cleat drill bit holders. I'm really liking these things. They've been working great for keeping everything organized. I also 3D printed a Forstner bit holder, which also makes things really easy. Of course, if you've been around my channel for a while, you probably recognize this sign that I used my laser cutter to cut out and make. I've got all of my Japanese trim saws, and other saws are up here. As well, I purchased the 3D print file from Scott Walsh. I'll link to that down below for my Narex Richter chisels. And because he doesn't have the full set, he doesn't have the 1.5 inch chisel, I actually imported his file into Fusion 360 and remodeled one extra here to fit my 1.5 inch chisel. Next to the chisel holder, I've also got my card scraper holder and my hand plane till. So I've got a number of hand planes. I like hand planes. What can I say? I use them when I use them. I'm still learning to use them effectively, but they're really fun to use. Up here is where I store my Craig 720, I think it is, pocket hole jig. And then my dad's Porter cable biscuit jointer. Don't use it often. Maybe I need to use it more, but it's up there, out of the way, and it's hard case. I've got a screw bit holder right here, and I've got my drill driver station with hand blade on top, some marking and measuring tools there. Down low, right here where everything plugs in, I've actually got a Wi-Fi switcher, and what this lets me do is I have it set to always turn the switch off around 8 o'clock every night. So if I'm charging something, that's what it's hooked up to, is my battery chargers. I can press the button on the side and turn it on, and it will never be on for more than however long it is, till 8 p.m. So just makes me feel good knowing that nothing is going to explode while I'm sleeping or awake. Then I've got all of my masking tapes and my favorite double stick tape right here, as well as a lot of my layout tools are right along this wall here. Right here, I have my DeWalt and my Ryobi charger, and over on this side, I've got my Milwaukee M12 charger. This is a new addition to the shop. Once I got one M12 tool, I found that I ended up getting a couple M12 tools. So these are all 3D printed holders, really like them. Well, this is a 3D printed battery holder. And these are 3D printed battery holders that I just got off Thingiverse for free, and then used my 3D printer to print those out. All right, going a little bit lower in the back corner, I have my DeWalt 2-tank air compressor set up. This thing was relegated to almost never getting used when I didn't have a heated workshop. It doesn't like the cold, but it's been working great for blowing things off and even doing some HVLP spraying. As well, I've got a mini fridge here filled with a bunch of different pops for myself to enjoy, but also when the kids come and help me out around the shop, I like to treat them with a shop pop. So that's what we do. I haven't found a good place for this yet, but on top of the fridge, I have an Amazon air quality meter. Right now, because I've been stirring up a lot of dust in this corner, it's telling me that I'm gonna die. So that's great. And a new addition that I got during Amazon Prime Day was just this cheapo 50-foot hose reel. Stays connected, it's connected to the wall. Can pull the hose across the entire shop, plus some for spraying things off, painting, as well as doing some automotive work when I need to. All right, off of the wall here, we've got the workbench. This is modeled after the Wood Whisperer Guild hybrid workbench, but I've made a couple of adjustments to it. So I'll bring you around and let's take a look at it. On the side here is actually a regret of mine. I really should have gotten the quick release vise, but at the time I didn't have a lot of money. This is the vise that I had on my old workbench, but I've put in the Lee Valley brass bench pups, I think they're called. It's got a walnut chop, and then it's lined with just some crubber gasket here that I contact cemented in. We've got some custom made pop-up bench dogs. The ones closest to me are set at just under a 1/2 inch, and the ones all the way over here are set to a 1/4 inch, so they sit a little bit lower. I've got my gap stop right here in between the two. The bench is made of ash, and then all of the trim type stuff is made out of walnut. As well, I'm using some of the long Lee Valley bench dogs for these holes here. I do believe that I have enough footage from when I was building this workbench to actually be able to run a build video at some time, but one addition that I made to the plans from the Wood Whisperer Guild is I ended up putting a leg vise on this. The screw is a Lee Valley tail vise screw, and then I was able to save a bunch of money by going with just the bench crafted hardware crisscross. That way I don't have to do anything with a pin board or with any kind of wedge that's foot activated, but this thing works really, really well. I'm very impressed with it. Down below the bench, I have some drawers filled with all my commonly used things. So I've got different files and rasps and marking knives and punches and pencils and screwdrivers and all of that. I guess above it here, I've got a lot of my different hammers and other equipment. This drawer here is a lot of my fasteners, which I'm still trying to sort out some of these drawers. The one below it is a sanding and sharpening drawer. So it makes it really fast and easy for me to be able to grab whatever sandpaper that I want here. And then the bottom drawer has a lot of my air tools and my little router there, some bushings, all of that. So that is that part of the workbench. Around the side of the workbench, I have my Bosch dust extractor that I picked up during Prime Day on a great sale. So that was good. And then underneath my bench on the back side, I have here my Moxon vise, which I do have a video on the whole build and plans available for free on my website. So I'll link that. I've got my winding sticks here, as well as a 36-inch Veritas straight edge. You will notice one of those green tools here. I did upgrade my sander to the 6-inch Festool ETS EC155 EQ. Reason being, I was having some issues where when I would sand for a long period of time, my wrist would really start to ache. So I switched over to the 3M extract sander. I was able to get a great price on the 6-inch 2.5 mil sander, and it was an upgrade. There was a much better dust collection, a lot less vibration, but I didn't find that it was much faster. So that's why I decided to go with 5mm stroke. So I ordered up the 3M 5mm, and I just wasn't happy with the amount of vibration coming from it. I don't know if it was a faulty one or what it was, but I realized it was pretty close in price up here in Canada to the Festool sander. So I decided to order one of those and see how it went. And I absolutely love the thing. The vibration is so low on it. It is fast, but does a great job. The dust collection, in my opinion, is better than the 3M sanders. So for me, that's the reason I'm using this. For sure, you don't need it, but I love using it. So that's what I have now. Something to keep in mind, I'll do my best to link the tools that are of interest in the description below so that you can go ahead and find those. Full disclosure, some of them may be affiliate links, so just be aware of that. You're not paying any more, but it does help the channel. This wall is not overly exciting, but it is an important part of the whole shop over here. I've got really just all my clamps, more clamps, paper towel holder, bunch of glue stuff, fastener rack, and some dowels and all of that over right here. Let's move along this way. Now, I love this bandsaw. This is a new edition, a marketplace find. It's the Laguna 14 SE and came with a whole bunch of blades and the mobile base. It's such a significant upgrade over the last one. This thing's 1 3/4 horsepower as opposed to 3/4 horsepower. I did keep my Craig fence, which to me just feels just nicer than the one that comes on the Laguna. But I did keep the Laguna fence just in case I ever decide to get rid of it or anything. The dust collection on this is hugely improved from the old rigid bandsaw, which I've actually still got in the shop. I'm hoping to be able to sell that soon. But that's the bandsaw. And why don't we just keep on moving down the wall? So right next to the bandsaw, I have my old workbench, which just looks so small in this space. But I fastened, for now anyways, my old scroll saw. This is like the first power tool that I ever got. I was still living at home with my parents when I got this. Then a bench grinder. Then my oscillating rigid spindle and belt sander over there, which I quite enjoy. And a little bit of small scrap storage. And then some drawers, which I store some odds and ends in. And I'll show you these here. I've just kind of a mishmash of various things that I've got stored away here. The most organized drawer is this one here with all of my wrenches in it. And then otherwise, it's just kind of a mishmash right now. Now, coming from the workbench up along the wall here, I've got my DeWalt plunge router as well as my jigsaw and some caulking storage. And then as we carry ourselves up along here, we begin to see some storage for lumber and different construction supplies. Coming down here, there's the old bandsaw and some other scrap supplies. And finally, along this wall, we come to the back corner where I've got the garage door right here and a computer screen, a computer, and the laser engraver in an enclosure. I haven't vented the enclosure out yet. I'm still waiting for a final building inspection, and I don't want to be piping anything out that may or may not be proper. I don't know. But the hose is right here, and I just open the garage door a little bit. Getting a little chilly to do that, but I open the garage door a little bit and stick this out of there and just let it go. I'm still working on the cabinet below the laser engraver, but right now the bottom drawer is kind of just odds and ends, miscellaneous fasteners and hardware. And then this top drawer here is some laser engraving and dust collection stuff. A bit of a mishmash, but that's that wall. Now in front of the garage door, I have something I am so happy to have in the shop now, and that is this 6-inch jointer. Yes, it's a 6-inch. Yes, it's an old Craftsman, but I got it for free. This one was in my dad's shop when I was growing up. He was never able to quite get it working right, but after a little bit of playing around with it, I've got it dialed in just so, and I'm really enjoying the time savings. Don't need one? Nice to have one. Now above the jointer along the garage door here, I have my rails for my Makita track saw. Let's talk dust collection. This is my dust collector. It's a 5-horsepower Cyclone that I picked up on Facebook Marketplace. An old cabinet shop was moving and they were selling this here, so I got a huge deal on it. There's still a little bit more work that I need to do. I do find it's got a 6-inch port coming off of a 5-horsepower dust collector, and that seems a little bit constricted. So I want to see if there's some way that I can open that up to an 8-inch. As well, it's running directly off into a 6-inch flex hose. And then the cost of getting 6-inch piping, especially considering I'm thinking of going to 8-inch, is a little bit cost prohibitive. So I am splitting it off into 2 4-inch pipe runs. It's working pretty well so far. As long as I'm only having one blast gate open at a time, I do end up pulling in about 550 CFM, which is decent, but I know that I could get so much more if I can pipe things in properly, and I am looking to do that in the future. My youngest son has been helping me out a lot in the shop. He likes to build his own projects, and I got a little bit tired of all of his stuff laying around the shop, so now he's got his own woodworking crate, so anything of a decent size for him to be able to use goes in here. He knows exactly what stuff is his, and then he's got a drawer for all of his little odds and ends and safety equipment and all of that. It's been working out really great, and he loves having his own designated spot in the shop. Next up along the wall, we have my lumber and plywood storage cart. So full sheets go on the back, and then partial sheets and offcuts go in the front. I've basically filled this thing up, so I don't know what I'm going to do at this point, but this is my lumber cart. I do have a video coming up at some point of me building this lumber cart. You can also see above the lumber cart here, I have some various jig storage for the table saw. So far, this is the best place that I've been able to find to keep track of all of this, so that's what I'm doing right now with it. Along this entire upper wall is my long length lumber storage, and then at the very top is the too expensive to use on a whim storage. It's all of my full board lengths of exotics and that kind of thing. Before we get into the tools that are in the center of the shop, I want to show you a couple things that I've got up high that really add to me feeling comfortable in this space. The first is this Nest smoke detector and CO2 detector. I just love knowing that whether I'm inside the house or away from the house, that it will let me know on my phone if anything is happening in the shop so that I can go ahead and call somebody to check it out. Additionally, I have my box fan shop filter set up. It works really well. I can go from a high level of particulate matter in the air down to it being safe in here in less than 10 minutes of running that filter. It's just off right now. Of course, as I said, in my extremely small shop where I had the same filter, I can't run it all the time when I'm filming my YouTube content. It's just too loud. Up in the back corner is my 50,000 BTU natural gas heater from Mr. Heater. This thing is great. It heats the shop so well, and it's hooked up over here to an Ecobee smart thermostat that is able to be adjusted from outside. So if things get really, really cold and I don't want to come into the shop at the 10 degrees that I leave it at, I can crank it up before I come in and know that I have a warm place to get into. Okay, here's my DeWalt planer. Now, I have been working on a project where I've been dealing with a lot of highly figured maple, and I was running into some tear out issues and running through a lot of blades as well. So I did end up throwing the Shelix cutter heads in here. Wow, is it ever amazing. If you can do that, I highly recommend getting something with a helical cutter head. And I've actually factored in that over the next couple of years, it's going to be a huge cost savings, in fact, with the number of blades I was going through before. I keep my incremental gauge on the back end of this cart. And then in the front end here, I'll bring you around, I have various odds and ends for the table saw and jigs and some other storage. And there's the case for my sander, and then a drawer, again, full of just random storage here. Now here's my baby. I just picked this up off of Facebook Marketplace. It is the SawStop CNS. So its dust collection isn't absolutely fantastic, but let me tell you, coming from that rigid table saw to something with the safety system, after the number of injuries that I have subjected myself to with sharp objects over the years, has been so nice. I do like how quick it is to change everything out on this. With all the accessories this came with, I figured out that I basically ended up saving about $3,000 on this saw. So I'm very happy about that. Everything is in pretty good condition. It came with the cast iron extension wings as well as a full bench dog fence and cast iron router lift system and the mobile base. This cabinet is a new addition as well. It's built so that it fits nicely underneath the table saw wing here. In the top, I am keeping some push flocks and feather boards and that kind of thing. And in the bottom drawer, I've moved that saw blade organizer that so many of you were worried about being at head height. I've moved it down into this drawer right next to the table saw, along with all of my brake cartridges for the saw. And that's been really, really great. As well, I've got these 3D printed hangers where I can have easy access to my various zero clearance inserts and such for the table saw. So everything is nice and close and at hand. Let me bring you around to the other side. Down on the side of that cart, I have kind of an access to the router itself, as well as storage for various router lift accessories and such. And I've made a little cubby where my router bits and router accessories can all be stored right in the side here. That's a work in progress, but so far I'm really happy with it. I also CA glued and epoxied my Craig router switch to the side here so that I have quick and easy access to turn on and off the router. Now right here is another project that I should have a video and plans coming up for soon. This is my outfeed table. It works out to approximately 5 feet by 5 feet. It was originally built for the other table saw. I thought I was gonna have that one a lot longer than I did, and so I did have to end up rerouting out a few things. And I never ended up using the hinged feature that I'd built into it to be able to access the splitter that used to hang out the backside of the old table saw. But so far, this has been really nice. It's got a Formica laminate top to it. It's made almost completely out of leftover construction lumber and a little bit of plywood. So as you can see, aside from the fact I've got a project drying up here, we've got shelf storage here. This is where I'm keeping most of my finishes, as well as my teleprompter and some glues and various things like that. Then I've got these drawers right here. So this top drawer has some various odds and ends, knife, tape measure, pencil, some tape, some shims, a scraper, all of that kind of stuff. And this drawer here also has some odds and ends. A lot of my right angle clamping doohickeys from Tay Tools are right here. I really like these ones. Even getting them in Canada, the cost versus performance is amazing. I used to have Miles Craft ones and I realized they weren't even close to being square. So these ones are bang on. I really highly recommend them. This drawer here, again, I've got my oscillating multi-tool and some various automotive things and spare parts and my anemometer, all of that. And this bottom drawer has my track saw, my old sander, my cordless and corded grinders, as well as my cordless circular saw. Well, that completes the shop tour. I really am loving this new space, but I want to make it very clear, I made some great things in the old, much smaller space. I'll link to the old shop tour there in case you're needing inspiration for a much smaller shop. But I'd love to know, after seeing this shop here, what questions do you have? What things do you want to know more about? I've got lots more videos on the way. Be sure to like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of the content that's coming up soon. This is Wind and Fire Woodwork, and until next time, make sawdust, not excuses. And my rigid oscillating spindle, and then my rigid oscillating spindle sander and belt. Before we get in,